Okay, brilliant. So next up, we're going to be hearing from Roku's Jordan Rost, Senior Director of Ad Marketing, and System One Group's Andrew Tindall, SVP of Global Partnerships, for an exploration of how viewer mood influences engagement and how it influences ad receptivity in the ever-evolving landscape of streaming TV. We'll hear about the importance of understanding viewer behaviour and the significance of your mood in shaping how you consume content, and whether an ad is actually effective or not. So, please welcome to the stage, Jordan and Andrew.
Thanks a lot. Hello, everybody. All right, hello everybody. My name is Jordan Rost. I'm joined by Andrew from System One. Excited to take you through some what I found to be pretty interesting research around what we're calling the power on mindset. Roku is an experience company. We power television for the many hundreds of millions of our streamers. And what we're going to be taking you through today is a little bit of a look at, as we were introduced, the mood and the receptivity that comes with those different moods for when people turn on their television and they're met with this endless choice of content and all these apps and services. And we're going to talk you through what it takes to cut through that clutter and ultimately how do you meet streamers in those moments. And I think probably the most exciting and interesting thing is unveil a bit of research that we've done into the creative messaging and the formats that we've helped innovate to make the best use of that time. We just have a few moments here, so I'm going to dive right in. And I'm going to start with a discussion about why people watch television. And the good news is about streaming, it's still television. People want to be entertained. They're coming to television for stories and entertainment. And what they're finding is that TV is, in fact, leaving them relaxed and calm, happy. This is the sort of anti-social feed, and very much is something that leaves them in a positive mood. What I found possibly most interesting is, not surprisingly, that happy mood is leading to strong ad receptivity. So happy streamers equals happy advertisers. That's why we're all here and talking through this research. The content they choose, I think, is really telling. So happy streamers are disproportionately likely to find their way into sport or news content, lean-in content that requires a lot of engagement or invites a lot of engagement. As you can probably tell, I'm an American, so I don't know why anybody's happy watching the news, but that seems to be the prevailing trend here. But I think the main takeaway here is when people come to television, they're looking for content that invites that lean-in experience that they're going to receive back. But here is where the story changes. Unfortunately, 3 in 4 streamers are met with challenges finding what to watch. Content is moving between services. They need to pay to get certain services, and so they're met with a wall. Well, what they want is an open door. And so that obstacle is a really big opportunity, obviously, for programmers and broadcasters and services, but the same is true for advertisers as well, because if you can help them along that journey, there's a really big opportunity. This, I think, is my most favorite stat. These are all my favorite children, but this is my most favorite child here. All of that meandering and fragmentation has led to a lot of browsing. That's probably not surprising. This is something I live with my family every day to day. But what I think is really interesting is half of the people that are browsing, the 48%, browsed even though they knew what they wanted to watch. So there's a really ingrained behavior that this streaming landscape has taught and consumers. I think it's probably the effect of FOMO. You always want the next best show to watch. That's cultural capital. And that meandering has really now become a journey. And what I think is really interesting in response to that is the tools that people are turning to make sense of that journey tell us some really interesting stories. One, no surprise, the most prevailing thing that they're turning to find content, trending playlist. They want to be part of that FOMO. They want to be part of the cultural zeitgeist. I'll skip over a couple. They want TV to be personal. So continue watching, knowing what I've just been watching, what's next. Favorites, custom playlists. What I, as Roku, being the interface to television, are also interested in is homepages on devices. This is an entirely new surface for advertising and engagement and content discovery that all of us in this room now have at our disposal to help make sense and ultimately reduce friction in these moments. We as Roku are taking advantage of that and trying to help innovate. And so when ITV wants to drive streaming and tune in and ultimate fandom for Harry Potter, they can use our home screen to do that. And so one click from our home screen, you're right into some pretty iconic content. If you step away from your TV for just a moment, you're met with this. This is Roku City. It started as a screensaver. It's become an entertainment playground. We've invited brands into this environment. And so McDonald's was actually the first brand advertiser to participate, and they're now scaling that globally. Brands have seen incredible effect being a part of this wallpaper, but a really engaging wallpaper. It really embodies the idea of lean in and lean back, melding together. And then to the idea of streaming playlists, we've built what we're calling Discovery Destinations. This is one dedicated to food that Coca-Cola sponsored to bring all of the great food content across the whole mess of television together in one place. One click from that home screen, this is that custom playlist. It's machine learning, it's algorithmically personalized to my tastes, different from Andrew's. One click from our home screen. And so these are wholly new surfaces and environments that advertisers can participate in that really embody this idea of power on. I'm in control, I'm holding the remote, I want what's next, but I want your help in telling me what the next right thing should be. But the reason I think a lot of our users come to TV is for video. It's the entertainment. They're trying to get to the content. And so we're trying to bring some of these same types of experiences to the video environment as well. And one of the places we're really starting to do this in an interesting way, I think, is with shoppability and with interactive ads. And so to start transitioning over to Andrew to talk through some of the research we've done in this space, I think many people have seen the ability to scan a QR code and get some direct response based on a television screen. These have been really interesting and I think have started to usher in a wave of direct response into television. We take it a step further because we are the remote in people's hands and we're the operating system powering their entire TV experience. And so we have the ability for Dove to overlay on top of their streaming or linear ads, the ability to press OK on that remote that's already in their hands to learn more, and they get information in their mobile devices. And what we've found is this is actually training consumers, not unlike the path to content has trained consumers to browse in different ways, to shop in different ways. And ultimately what we're excited about is the ability to take the friction out of the moment where attention meets intention, and you can create actual interesting consumer pathways that actually drive advertiser performance. So with that set up, an introduction to our creative format, I'd like to pass it over to Andrew to talk about the research we've done in the space.
Amazing, thank you. Hey guys, how you doing? So I'm from System 1. Who's heard of System 1 before?
Woo.
Oh good, we're doing good here, aren't we? I'm doing a good job. So you'll all know who System 1 are in a minute. So we are an effectiveness platform that tests creativity through the lens of brand and emotion. So we've worked with Roku to essentially test around 50 campaigns. So what we do is we show a piece of advertising to a large group of representative people, in this case US citizens and then Canadians as well. And we measure how they feel, how intensely, and whether they can recall what brand an ad is for. And we create our creative metrics which predict various things. We have our star rating which predicts how good a piece of creative is going to be at creating future demand for a brand, those long-term effects. It's based on how positive and not neutral or negative people are left feeling after watching an ad. Secondly, we have our spike rating. Our spike rating is, if the star's are long, the spike's the short, how good an ad will be at capturing in-market demand based on how emotionally engaging an ad makes, how emotionally engaged you are in an ad, but also how intensely the ad brands. Because if an ad is more intensely branded earlier and more correctly, and we call it fluency, it speaks to those that are in the buying market. And then finally, as well, we have our fluency rating, which is essentially ad distinctiveness. How many people can recognize what brand an ad is for? So we took this tool, our Test Your Ad tool, and we tested around 50 campaigns that were on Roku. And we did it with a broad audience that we could call nationally representative, everyone. But we also did it with a Roku audience, people that are tuning in and choosing to see content on Roku. And we found something really interesting. Because of that value exchange where Roku users are choosing to go onto a platform with advertising, we actually see that Roku users are significantly happier when exposed to advertising. And what that does, it takes the average from our broad audience that we tested these 50 campaigns with to our Roku audience on the right, to another star rating level, almost an increase in 1 star rating, which is predicting those long-term effects that creating future demand. This really speaks to that value exchange that we were talking about just slightly before this. Roku users are more happy to see advertising, but it's also that value exchange there that they're getting, that beautiful full TV, long-form video, entertaining content, but also we're seeing some more of these direct response shoppable formats coming through. So let's have a look at a specific example that we looked at. I think the Dove we tested a Dove campaign, which is a really good example. So let's have a look at that. But also the context of this will be, on the far left, we've got our standard linear TV ad. And then in the middle, we've got one of the Roku shoppable ad formats. And then on the far right, we've got a separate, different format as well. And at the bottom here, we've got our emotional and brand recognition.
You've changed.
Should we start again with his audio from the start? If we could turn the audio on.
You've changed. You've healed. You've evolved. So have we. New Dove Body Wash now has millions of moisturizing micro droplets for 24 hours of continuous care. Change is beautiful. New Dove Body Wash.
So we've got a great example of one of the 50 campaigns we tested with thousands of people here. Let me talk us through it. So we've got a click to OK kind of format in the center, and then also a scannable QR code on the far right. And there's two things that these shoppable formats are doing. One, they're helping the creative to brand. You can see that in the bottom here, where we call fluency. This is a second-by-second brand recognition in the ad. So the brand is being brought further sooner into the advertising. And second, there's a value exchange there. You're offering something as well. So because of that early branding, where consumers, there's a big misconception that people don't like to brand, like consumers don't like ads that brand early. People like to know who's talking to you. So because of that branding early and that value exchange, we're seeing a decrease in negative emotion and an uplift in positive emotions, which is really good to see. And what that leads to, if we look at our star rating, and we've got this for over 50 campaigns now on Roku, if we look at the broad audience versus a Roku audience, we see in every case, once again, that Roku audience are liking that advertising more, but those shoppable formats are also increasing happiness. So it's not just the value of that direct response from the shoppable formats, it's making it a more effective advertising and growing long-term future demand. And if we think about that's the long, if we look at the short, our spike rating, it's a very similar case. If we focus specifically on the Roku audience here, emotional intensity is growing in these different shoppable formats, and it's increasing that emotional engagement, which will lead to short-term behavior change, driving that direct response as well. So we're seeing a fundamental difference between these two audiences, but also the different shoppable formats. And finally, as well, these shoppable formats really help to increase brand recognition, but we also see, because that Roku audience is more emotionally engaged, they lean in and notice what brand an ad is for easier. Although this is a terrible example of this, because the Dove ad is incredibly well branded. But yeah, you get the point. So that's all I wanted to share. I'm looking at a huge sample of over 50 campaigns, comparing it between that broad and that Roku audience. I like to think about media through a value exchange. You can really see the effects where someone's bought into a platform and they're okay and happier seeing advertising. And we're also seeing how these shoppable formats are bringing new value to TV as well. I'll hand back over and then we'll do a quick summary.
Right. Thank you, Andrew. It's always really helpful having a partner in crime who can bring a lot of these stories to life. And to Andrew's point, I mean, this is a really, I think, really well-executed ad to begin with. And so the ability to layer on top of that is certainly exciting. To me, I think the happiest point of this is the fact that advertising can actually add to the happiness that television brings to people. Warms my heart, certainly. But the way in which to do that, I think, is really to understand, first, that ultimately brands can be part of that value exchange and ultimately reduce friction and help consumers towards their discovery. Discovery can be finding a new show. It could also be, hey, that product looks really interesting, let me learn more. And so the removal of that friction is incredibly valuable from an advertiser's perspective. And we're only just getting started with shoppability on television. We're doing a lot of experimentation. We'd love to work with all of you to figure out what does this look like for your creative, for your category, for your market or your region. And we'll evolve that testing as we go forward. I wanted to leave you with one parting gift. If you want to take a look, we just released our 2025 streaming predictions for the year ahead. This is all about the future. So take a look here. These are some of Roku's view of the streaming landscape, the media landscape, the entertainment landscape, talking about everything from the future of live sports to major tentpole moments. So thank you all very much. Thank you to Andrew and the team at System1, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Thanks, guys.